Let's get one thing straight about today's episode of Controversial Animal Topics. This will not be your average rabies awareness talk. Today, we're tackling one of the most polarizing questions in modern veterinary medicine: to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. These 6 little words can clear a room or start a war in the comments. But stick with me, because these conversations that we avoid are often the ones we need to have the most. I'm Dr. Turnera Croom, Army veterinarian, holistic practitioner, and the vet that pet parents call when they're done with the generic script. Welcome to Controversial Animal Topics, where we do not shy away from hard questions and honest truths.
So let's get real. Vaccines, they flipped the script on animal health, eradicating canine distemper in some regions, keeping parvovirus at bay, and saving headlines from another rabid outbreak. But somewhere between prevention and needle worship, critical thinking disappeared. Pet parents tell me, Dr. Croom, my tiny Yorkie gets the same rabies dose as a giant Rottweiler. And I say, that's standardized protocol. But is it individualized medicine? Let's remember, vaccine guidelines rarely account for weight, breed, or true immune variability. Despite evidence that smaller dogs do show higher rates of post vaccination adverse reactions, especially when receiving multiple shots at once. That's like dosing a toddler and a linebacker with the same caffeine just because. The big secret: most modern rabies vaccines are proven effective for at least 3 years. Some studies even document lasting immunity up to 5 years for a single injection. Yet, legislation still drives annual boosters and not hard immunology. Okay? Why is that though? Outdated public health policies, legal inertia, and yes, sometimes even economics. Let's get into thimerosal. So, it's a mercury based preservative, and plenty of research links it to neurotoxicity in developing brains, as well as acute allergic reactions in sensitive animals. Multiple animal studies show correlations, though regulatory agencies still debate the magnitude of the risk. Do thimerosal free vaccines make a difference? For some pets, absolutely, especially those with repeat vaccine sensitivity or autoimmune issues. All right, cue to the whispered phone calls. Dr. Croom, I don't want to vaccinate my dog anymore. Bad reactions are real, from acute anaphylaxis to chronic dermatitis, seizure clusters, or lifelong allergies. Adverse events post vaccine are published in peer reviewed journals, but rarely discussed in the average clinic. Facebook groups blame everything on big pharma, but let's look at the data. Multi-dose protocols correlate with higher rates of immune-mediated diseases in certain predisposed breeds. And then vaccine-associated sarcoma in cats is a documented phenomenon, not a myth. That's why I always say run titers if you can. Antibody titers, backed by decades of research, they let us gauge the immune protection that's still present in your pet's body without giving another jab. And most European veterinarians do use them routinely, while many United States clinics lag behind. So let's play this out. Okay, so we've got this holistic pet parent coming to me, and they're like, but Dr. Croom, I read that vaccines can cause autism in dogs. Then I would say firmly, dogs don't have a DSM 5. Autism in humans isn't in the veterinary lexicon. It's not in our vocabulary at all. What you see in dogs is post vaccine encephalitis or gut inflammation. We always know, right? The gut, it can be the start of a lot of problems. And this information is published but rare. It's not autism, it's immune dysregulation. So the pet parent, the holistic pet parent again might say to me, but the shelter said that I can't adopt unless all shots are done. And then I would say, shelter policy is about population risk management. There's no doubt about that. It's not precision medicine. Kudos to all those shelters out there that give their time and volunteer. And we understand you can't do everything. But once the pet is yours, individualized care should win out. So we want to follow that herd protection rationale, and that's what the shelters do. And we understand that. But remember, once in your care, protocols must evolve as the clinical evidence grows. All right. So we're learning something here, pet parents. But let's talk hypocrisy here. Okay. Veterinary professionals, we get rabies series once, then check titers, not annual shots. But your pet, annual rabies boosters, regardless of science or risk. And that, again, that's not for every veterinarian. It's not for my vet clinic. There are a lot of holistic veterinarians out there that do take this individualized care very seriously. But in general, fear, liability, and mass convenience can really dictate what veterinary clinics do out there. Plus, as we vets know, there's been a lot of corporate takeover of veterinary clinics. So we say hypocrisy because, yes, as vets, we may do what's needed for our own individual pets. We may say, you know what, my own personal dog does not need a vaccine every year. We don't have to ask anyone about it. We look at the reviews, we look at the research, and we can decide for our own pets. But then are we now pushing out to the masses that they should get the annual boosters every year? I firmly believe that you want to have your own integrity as a veterinarian or an animal professional. And whatever you believe and do for your own pet, at the very least, share with your clients that come in and let them decide to an extent. It's always a balance for us veterinarians, of course, because we have to think about the public population at large. So it can't just be like, oh, okay, well, this pet parent, they're living in their own little bubble and I don't want to give rabies, I don't want to give parvo, but yet and still they want to use public resources like dog parks and doggy daycares. That's where the balance comes in. So it's still individualized healthcare because if your individualized family uses these public places, then individually your pet should be vaccinated to protect not only themselves, but to protect those other dogs that are out using those public spaces. So keep that in mind, okay? So what's the answer here? There's no always vaccinate or never vaccinate. It's always going to be somewhere in the middle. And the evidence says that vaccine protocols must be adjusted for age, breed, immune status, and lifestyle. And over vaccinating, that can be linked to allergies, autoimmune disorders, and even behavioral changes in some events. So, fewer targeted vaccines equals fewer adverse events and better health.
And now I want to introduce a new segment here on Controversial Animal Topics, where I will share excerpts from real conversations that I've had with students in my future veterinarian virtual internship. Today, you're going to hear from Hadasha Cortes. She's one of the most dynamic people I've had the privilege of mentoring, with a background in lab animal science and hands-on experience working with non-human primates, swine, dogs, and smaller animals like rabbits and rodents. Hadasha brings a grounded, thoughtful perspective to the vaccine conversation, and I'm excited to dig into it with her. Hadasha, welcome. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Hi everyone. Today's topic really caught my attention. I was surprised to learn that 30% of people believe dog vaccines can cause autism like symptoms. That pushed me to dig deeper into how vaccines really work, and what we as future vets should be questioning.
So, Hadasha, in your research, what did you find out about how people are reacting to vaccines in general?
There is actually a definitely growing a divide. Some parents are becoming skeptical of animal shots, especially after COVID and all the human vaccine debates. I think a lot of them want more transparency. What's in it? How long does it last? And whether their pet really needs it every year.
That's fair. And honestly, I agree. We are seeing a major shift. Holistic minded pet owners are asking for thimerosal free rabies vaccine. That's the preservative that's usually found in a lot of vaccines. Certain ones keep that preservative out. Not all vets use those. And those pet owners are also asking about titer testing instead of automatic booster shots or spacing out the schedules. I am not against vaccines. I'm against unnecessary ones.
I couldn't agree more. In lab medicine, where I work, our vaccination schedules are set in stone, but pets live in different conditions. It makes sense to have an individualized care for each animal.
Very true. I worked in lab animal medicine for quite a few years, just like you, Hadasha, and it's true. When you were in that lab, the vaccines and everything is scheduled. You've got to have it, everything just on the dot. And as future veterinarians, you all need to know when to follow the law and when to advocate for better policy.
That's an important distinction.
So we mentioned titers. A lot of pet owners hear that word, but don't really know what it means. Hadasha, from your lab perspective, what is a titer test really telling us?
A titer test is actually telling us that is basically measuring antibody levels. It tells us whether the immune system still remembers the disease. If antibody levels are high, that means protection is still present, so revaccinating might not be necessary.
That's true. A lot of pet parents do come to me and would like titer testing, and all vets don't do it. So if you came to me and your dog had rabies shot 2 years ago, we could do a titer test that shows that the levels are still high. We can avoid injecting that pet again. So I use titer testers often, especially for older pets and those with chronic conditions. So it's a data driven approach. You're treating based on the body's real status, not just a date on a reminder card.
I love that. It's about individualized care.
So here's a question I get all of the time. If humans don't get vaccinated for rabies or other vaccines every year, why do pets have to?
That's actually a really good question. And in humans, only people at risk, like vets or lab workers like myself, get the pre exposure series. And even then, they just check titers occasionally, right?
Exactly. So you see the gap here. Human medicine adjusts based on risk and antibody status. The veterinary laws, though, really behind. They're slow to evolve. A lot of that comes from public health liability fears. It's easier for regulators to just say every year than to educate with nuance.
Let me play the devil's advocate, Dr. Croom. What about people who say, I'm skipping vaccines entirely because I'm holistic?
I love it because you're testing me now. Here's my answer. Holistic doesn't mean reckless. I'll never tell someone to ignore the law or public safety. Rabies kills, period. But I will say we need more intelligent protocols. Give vaccines when they're needed, not just when a computer says so.
That's a really good point.
Holistic means we respect both nature and science. I'm not anti vaccine, I'm pro conscious care.
And that's the difference. Holistic is about why we do things, not just doing less.
Well, Hadasha, you have been watching this shift from your intern seat. What do you see among your generation of future veterinarians?
Honestly, we're more open minded. We want to blend evidence based medicine with holistic care and not pit them against each other. We're talking about herbs, acupuncture, chiropractic, but still studying immunology and pathology. It's not either or anymore.
The future of vet med isn't rigid. It's integrated. When you see that word, a lot of people don't necessarily know what that means. That's where that combination is, because even as a holistic vet, I can say that all day long, but I still have vaccines in my refrigerator. We still have public health issues that come up. It's dogs, cats, horses. I am connected to all these agencies that will put out alerts when things are happening. I see when West Nile virus in the horses pops up in Michigan, I get an alert. We've got to know about those things. We've got to vaccinate against them, but we want to be very nuanced with it.
Exactly. It depends on the situation.
Hadasha, before we wrap up, thank you so much for being a part of my future veterinarian virtual internship and for leaning into this conversation with me.
Absolutely.
Vaccines are not an easy topic, and your perspective as a future vet adds an important voice to this discussion. I really appreciate you being a part of controversial animal topics today.
Thank you for having me. This conversation is exactly the type of experience that makes your virtual internship special.
And now, listeners, I want to take a moment to share a few final thoughts as this episode draws to a close. What we know is that vaccines save lives, but at the same time, overvaccination can cause harm. The bottom line is the answer is not in extremes. It's about nuance and whole animal care where data drives every decision. Ultimately, you must remember that the holistic revolution begins with you questioning everything. You as a pet parent, you as a pet professional, you as a pre-veterinary student. Because real change does not start with blind trust or blanket rejection. It starts with curiosity. If you want more conversation like this, don't shy away from tough truths. Check out our other episodes of controversial animal topics on your favorite listening platform. And for honest answers about holistic pet care, you can find me on the Dr. Croom Army Vet YouTube channel, Substack, and across social media. That will do it for this episode of Controversial Animal Topics with me, your host, Dr. Turnera Croom, Army Vet and Holistic Veterinary Practitioner. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and always keep questioning, even me.